Welcome everybody, I'm Dr. Steve Scheibner.
And I'm Megan Scheibner, and today we're going to talk about managing technology in the 21st century.
Okay, so now we're in the 21st century and technology is not going away. In fact, it's absolutely everywhere. Steve Jobs, I think, coined this age as the information age, and we've got more information at our fingertips than any generation has ever had before, and it's just exploding. It's multiplying over and over again, right? We were coming here today, right, and a song was playing overhead. And so I grabbed my little phone and I said, Siri, what song is this? I waited for a half a second and she told me what song it was and gave me a link to buy the album and download, a bunch of other things at the same time.
Temptation.
I'm like, it's just, for a lot of us, it seems almost overwhelming sometimes, the amount of technology. But the point about technology is this, and we want to talk about managing your family, managing technology, managing this portal to a whole world of influences that really can destroy the family and tear down marriages. I mean, this is nothing more than a portal. Those things have been out there, but they were a little less accessible years ago. Now they're much more accessible and they can be hidden behind closed doors as well. And so at any rate, the technology is not going to go away, right? And so as much as we might want to wish it away, it's here to stay. And so we think we only have really one choice. We've got to embrace it. We've got to embrace the technology these days. And so, having said that, we have learned and tried to manage with our kids some strategies for them approaching technology. One of the things is we try not to give it to them too early, all right? And an 8-year-old does not need a cell phone. No matter how much they clamor for it, how upset they get about it, they simply don't need one. It's got to be an age-appropriate thing for them. We also talk about this being stuff that belongs to us as well. It's a family thing that we do together. There are also filters that you can put on these things, and we'll talk about all those things as we go forward. All right?
Yes. Yeah, good. Well, let me start with the youngest children, because as you know, Steve and I travel the country teaching parents, and we're shocked by how many young people are using technology as a babysitter.
Right.
And I understand how easy it is when a child is fussing or they're unhappy to pull out the iPhone or pull out some type of technology to pacify them. But when we do that, parents, what we're doing is we're missing moral training opportunities. Baby-proofing their life by using technology does nothing for their heart. Right? And if your child is crying and carrying on and watching TV on your phone will make it stop, you have done nothing to train them. And you're not teaching them how to practice self-control over those emotions. So just because something's easy doesn't mean it's something we should do. The scripture says just because something's permissible does not mean it's profitable. And so I would say for those of you with little children, practice discernment, practice self-control yourself. Don't use it as a babysitter. And especially if your little 18-month-old, 2-year-old begins to demand to be using that technology, they shouldn't be using it. We have told all of our children, this is not a toy, this is a tool.
Right.
It's a tool that we can use for good, right? Technology is amoral. It's how it's used where morality comes into it. Should a 2-year-old have a tool that they're turning on and pushing buttons, and would you hand a tool to a child that costs as much as one of these things costs? You want to train them that this is mommy's, this is daddy's. We use it at our discretion when we think it's good for you.
Right. And the moral training opportunity comes in there to keep their hands off some of these things. But if you're letting them handle these things because they're the substitute babysitter and entertaining them, that child doesn't know the difference between the one you handed them and the one that, Mr. Kirschbaum has here, right? And so they're going to grab his phone and break it. So there's some interpersonal sides of this thing as well. Now let's talk about the age appropriateness for these sort of things. I hate to come up with concrete ages for when you start giving children technology. Certainly, the school is going to begin to expose children to technology at the earliest ages. We've had TVs in our homes for generations.
Right.
So children see all the screen, they see the technology, they see the iPads. I think there's nothing wrong with sitting down with a child and reading a book or going through some cartoons or doing it together, right? They're going to begin to learn the motor skills rather easily, but they need to understand how to respect these things as well. And there's really kind of two levels to that. There's the respect, the physical, expensive part of these things that they might break, but then there's the moral side of respecting where they can go and how much trouble they can get into with a device like that. And I don't think you can have that conversation too early. Children and parents need to exercise discipline as they're going forward with technology, because like I said earlier, To go get a dirty magazine years ago was kind of a chore. You had to go to the store and there was a thing and you had to get the person behind the counter and you had to tell them I want a dirty magazine and they'd go buy it. And it was so there was natural barriers to doing that sort of thing. Now all of that whole world of pornography and all the other filth is a couple of clicks away, and you can carry it with you in your pocket or any place that other people can't observe it. So it's much more easy to get away with that sort of stuff now, but it's still just as destructive to the inner person and to the relationships and to the family. So what am I going to say about ages? Well, mom and dad, you need to be involved with your children. Like Megan said before, be a student of your particular child. Understand when it's appropriate for them. When they have the maturity, then they can handle the phone. For our children, they don't get a smartphone with access to the internet until they're able to drive. And so the two things kind of go together. Why we want them to be able to call if they got a flat tire or something like that. And at the same time, we block it by putting filters on this stuff. Now, are we baby-proofing life for them? I'm not a big fan of baby-proofing life. However, if we had a small child in the house, you would take the poisons and you would put them up out of the way, right? Because that little child doesn't know the difference between a skull and crossbones and some little candy. And so they're going to put everything in their mouth and it could kill them. Same thing goes with the technology, all right? So we put filters on this stuff, even for our almost adult children who are using the technology as a safeguard for them. So I get a report on where they're going on the internet. I also go periodically and look at their history. And it's real easy. Just bring up the menu, go to Finder, click History, and it's going to give you a whole history. And by the way, if they have just cleared out their history, then we're going to have a lot of questions about why you just cleared out your history, all right? So that's some thoughts on age appropriateness.
Yeah, and no matter what the age your family standard is, when a child has been given the technology, doesn't mean it's theirs for good. You know, we call them their iPod is my pod, and they know that if they misuse the technology they have, that we're going to take it back from it. And that doesn't necessarily mean they go to sinful sites. It could just be overuse because the technology has become such an addiction to so many people. Now, I'm talking about kids at this point, but moms and dads, we spend far too much time on our technology, right? Moms, in our ministry, when we send out surveys or questions, do you know when we send them? We send them at 8 o'clock at night because we know that that's when moms get on the internet and they're on for hours. You think you're going to spend 10 minutes on Pinterest and 3 hours later you realize that you haven't gotten any of your responsibilities fulfilled because you've been locked on that technology. And it's the same for our kids. So you be the guardian of their time. If they're not responsible, if they're not doing those budding and primary and secondary responsibilities, then you limit and you say, no, you don't get time on the computer today, or I need to have your iPod back today, and you take it from them. We would encourage you, for those children who are living in your home, and for you as well, to have an iPhone or whatever type phone you have corral at night. Our kids are up all night. They are not getting deep sleep because there's texts coming in, Snapchat coming. They're continually have their ear tuned to that device.
Yeah, they're waking up every 20 minutes, texting somebody, and then they find, back and forth.
And the overuse and the addiction is breaking down relationships. We did some teaching in another session about teens, sex, and dating. They're seeing so many problems with dating now because people don't know how to relate to one another because on a date, they're on their phones, right? And so to say to our kids, I would like you to consider putting your phone away. Our 21-year-old daughter just made a commitment, and we didn't ask her to. She came to this on her own, that when she's with any other person, her phone is turned completely off and put into her purse because she was too tempted to multitask. I'm relating with you, but I'm also relating with everyone on my device. That's not how we treat people. That's not respectful. It's not considerate. It's not appropriate.
Talk about a corral. You mentioned that. What is it, the phone corral?
Well, we have a basket that the phones come down to, all the charger cords run into it, and the children that live at home, and we have some older teens, they bring their phone down, they plug it into charge for the night, and then they leave in the morning with it. Now, I did want to talk about this because we had a lot of moms that have written into us that said that the public school is providing computers for their children, and Christian schools do that as well. Christian schools put filters on their computers. And so there's not as much a concern. But these moms were saying that the public schools weren't allowing them to put filters on their
Right.
kids' computers because of the sites they wanted their children to go to. And I would encourage you as parents, go in and fight that battle.
Yeah.
Years ago, Christian parents fought the battle when books began to be introduced into classrooms that were inappropriate for Christians. Christians fought the battle, and teachers had to give an alternative assignment. Do the same with the computers. You go fight with your school boards and you say, we as Christians are putting a filter on this computer, and you need to allow an alternate assignment for my child if they can't get to the website. Do not allow the public school or the government to tell you what your child can
Right.
be exposed to.
Right. Your child is too precious for you not to get involved in that
Yep,
process. And you know what? And your
absolutely.
voice will be heard. So get in there and go fight for your kids, all right?
Yep,
And get those
absolutely.
filters put on. Let's talk a minute about teaching into what is the best internet filter out there. All right. Now, there's a whole bunch of them that you can actually install on these devices. Covenant Eyes is a good one. I
Yep.
like that. The best internet filter of all is the heart. All right. And so for us over the years, we wanted to plant those seeds in the life of our children, water the seeds properly, help raise them to become character champions so that they exercise discipline. They have the courage to not do what everybody else is doing it, just because they're doing it, right? And that takes some time. And mom and dad, you have to instill in your children's heart a deep and abiding love of virtue over time. But if you do it properly, they'll be their own best filter. Having said that, we still do put the internet filters on there, but I trust my children. When we go away for a weekend, they're not going to throw a party at the house. And also when my eyeballs aren't on them or I'm not checking their history all the time, they're not going to places that they shouldn't be going. And you know what? I can almost kind of sense it, right? You know, we can see whether our kids are clear-eyed or not.
Yep.
And when they seem to be kind of hiding something from us, Mommy, don't you get that radar going? You're like, something's not right here, all right? The first place I'd go is I'd grab that computer, I'd grab that smart device or whatever it is, and I'd do a check. And I'd ask them straight out, are you going places you shouldn't be going? And if you ask them that question directly and they can't make eye contact and they get squirrely, now you know. All right, and so that's the role of the parent, right? We're not to be the, you know, we don't want to be the bad guys all the time, but in the sense, we have to be that person that protects them. We see the danger that lay ahead, and the wise man avoids it, right? And we know the danger that they can get into with those things. So let's plant those seeds in their heart so that they have their own internal filter. That's the best filter of all.
Well, and that filter has to be there, because if you have a heart inclined to go bad places, you will find a way to do it. All they have to do is ask a friend to borrow a phone, you know, go next door, whatever it is. That's why it's so important to teach into the heart.
Right.
Now,
So we've been talking about the negative side
right.
of this. Let's
There's
talk
really,
about the positive side.
There's so many positive
Right.
things that technology has provided for us. The one that pops to mind first for me is every morning I send my kids and probably 14 other young adults a verse of the day and just a little thought with it. And I send it out to encourage them. I don't send mean verses. I send really encouraging verses.
Right.
And sometimes my children respond to it. Sometimes they don't, but they always get it. Sometimes a child responds and says, Mom, that's just what I needed to hear today. A couple of my children that, honestly, occasionally I ask myself, do they even care? If I miss a day, they're the first ones. Hey, Mom, there was no verse today. Why didn't I get a verse today? But it's a way for me to maintain that spiritual contact with them throughout the day. I use my cell phone. I have 2 kids in college right now. When I know they have tests or quizzes, I just send off a quick text. Hey, Mom's praying for
Right.
you. I know you're going to do your best. You're a brain. You know, you're the brainiac. You've got this, okay? It's a way that we can pour encouragement into our children. And probably our favorite way, and I'm going to have you share a little
Yeah.
bit more about this, is our group text.
Yeah. So we got this group text, and they first of all, they named it Dad is Bald. I
Yeah.
didn't like that name. So they changed it to Everything is Awesome. And you can name your group text whatever you want. Mom and Dad, if you don't know how to start a group text, grab your local
Ask
teenager,
them.
say, set me up on a group text. They'll do it in 30 seconds. You'll have it all set up in your phone. And so the whole family, now our family, some of the kids are grown and gone, and they live in different parts of the country. So it's a little hard to stay in touch with each other. Well, almost every day the group text lights up, right? One or the other of our adult children sends some shot across the bow at somebody else in the group. And usually it's a old picture of somebody in a bathtub when they were, a year and a half years old, or some embarrassing photo of them when they were 13 and had braces, and, hey, just thinking about you today, and they send the text out, or name this picture. They do that a lot,
Yeah,
right?
caption this.
So I'll be up here, I'll have my phone in my pocket, I'll have it turned on vibrate, and quite often I'll be up in front of a group teaching like I am right now. And I was behind a podium one time in church, and all of a sudden my pocket starts going, and I know exactly what that is. That's the group text lighting up, and the whole family is shooting back and forth at each other, and it's just so much fun. And so I can't wait to open it up and weigh in, right, with my opinion on stuff. And I just laugh out loud with the stuff they say to each other. But it's really a neat way for us to stay connected to one another. So even though we're not in the same room together, we are connecting with each other almost every day.
The other night we were busy teaching, and at the end of the night I pulled out my phone and there were 48 text messages
that
on
was
the
a big
group
one.
message, and a lot of them were calling us out because we weren't involved in it. We
where
weren't
are
there
you
to
guys?
protect ourselves.
Yeah, they're making fun of
Yeah,
us.
yeah. Here's another positive thing that technology has given us. It used to be that if you couldn't get to your grandchildren, you rarely got to see them. You had to wait for pictures. Our parents never got pictures because we're such lousy picture takers.
Yeah, we were.
But now I get to FaceTime with my grandchildren that don't live near me every day, and I'm still a part of their life, and I
Right.
no questions to ask, and they can talk to me. And so technology has some really beautiful positive sides to it. We don't need to be afraid of it. We need to learn to manage it in a way that is biblical and God-honoring, recognize it's here to stay.
Well, we were FaceTiming with our little granddaughter, Kaylee, this morning.
Yes.
And Megan started talking to Kaylee, and she's talking to Grandma through it. So I snuck in behind and did one of these, and she goes, "Oh, you're there," and she was just so delighted. And she's at that age, that lovely age. So it's neat to stay in touch. So embrace the technology, right?
Yep,
It's fun.
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be scary, right? Technology in and of itself is not evil. It's how it's used. So train into your children's hearts, model wisely how you use technology, and then trust God for the results.
So Mom and Dad, it's up to you. Whether this stuff is a blessing or a curse really kind of weighs down on us. Have that conversation with your children. Embrace the technology, use the positive parts of it, be a dedicated parent, get in there, put the filters on, plant the seeds in the heart. And I think in the long run, you're going to find out that these things will actually be more of a blessing than a curse.
Right.
All right? Well, with parenting counsel you can trust, I'm Dr. Steve Scheibner.
And I'm Megan Scheibner.